Massive Penguins updates as a key player returns to the lineup for the first time in a month. Kyle Dubas made not one, but 2 trades yesterday. Rickard Rakell continues to score big goals this season. It happened again last night. Bryan Rust reaches another career milestone in the game against the Panthers. And Philip Tomasino was injured last night. We have an injury update for you guys today on Penguins Digest. All of that and so much more on today's show. First, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, Penguins Digest. Most of you are not yet subscribed, and I'm not sure what you're waiting for. We have the latest Pittsburgh Penguins news and content here on Penguins Digest. And we're going to start with 2 trades that Kyle Dubas cooked up yesterday. They were both minor league swaps, nothing crazy. AHL players that we were able to get and give away. I think what it really comes down to is Kyle Dubas sees a need for defensemen in this organization. We have a ton of forward depth, especially at the AHL level. And now we sent Jesse Puljujarvi down there after he cleared waivers. So we have some room to move some guys around, and we need to build up that back end. Owen Pickering has been hurt. Marcus Pettersson has been hurt. Kris Letang is still hurt. A lot of problems on the back end for the Penguins as far as injuries are concerned. They called up Nate Klerman. He played well in his first NHL game, but it's always important to shore up that back end and get even more defensemen just to prepare for this run that the Penguins are trying to go on. So we see, the Penguins have acquired defenseman Colton Pullman from the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for forward Bennett MacArthur. Pullman is signed through the 24-25 season and will report to Wilkes-Barre Scranton of the AHL. So more defense. You can never have too many defensemen. He's carrying a cap hit around $775,000. Pullman is a defensive-minded defenseman, something the Penguins desperately need. Obviously, it's something that they already have in Ryan Graves, but most of their key defensemen are offensive-minded. You think about Kris Letang, Erik Karlsson, even Owen Pickering, I would argue, is an offensive-minded defenseman. Marcus Pettersson at times, but having another stay-at-home defenseman that can just plug and play. And then if needed, he can be called upon whenever it's deemed necessary by the Pens. We'd like to carry 7 defensemen on our NHL team at the least. So if somebody else goes down, Pullman will be ready to step up. As we look at the next trade that the Penguins pulled off yesterday, Jagger Joshua getting moved. He was traded to the Rochester Americans for future consideration, so the Penguins aren't getting anything in return. They are just shedding another forward from their AHL roster. The Baby Penguins have a very deep forward group, and Jagger Joshua, one of those guys. So we bring in a defenseman, we trade away a couple of forwards, MacArthur and Joshua. Nothing too serious, but they are still trades. Nevertheless, we can't ask Kyle Dubas to make splashes all the time. It's not necessary. Sometimes depth trades can be just as important, and these players could make an impact for the Penguins down the stretch. So I'm all for it. I like the idea of shaking things up when needed, and we needed another defenseman. So we're able to bring one in, get rid of a couple of forwards that other teams see some value in, and just kind of plug and play with that lineup in the AHL. As long as those guys are ready to come up to the NHL when we need them, that's fine. They are using the AHL the way that it's supposed to be used, as a farm system for players that could make it to the NHL, that are developing their game, or just guys that are veteran presences like Pullman that have been in the league before, played a lot of minutes, played a lot of games, and then can be called upon when necessary. Good job by Kyle Dubas. Take advantage of having such a deep forward group. Now we'll talk about the game last night. Promising start, but missed opportunities for the Penguins. They won their previous matchup against the Panthers exactly 1 month ago, 5-4. That was a big win for Pittsburgh, and we knew it was going to be a close one. This is the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. They are not a cakewalk. They are not a pushover, and the Penguins really had to bring their best game if they wanted to beat Florida. They didn't necessarily play their best game, but they did get off to a pretty impressive start. Let's look at the power play numbers on the season, because that's something that we really have to mention. The Penguins got a 4-minute power play after Ryan Graves drew a high-sticking double minor in the first period, and the power play struggled to convert but generated a lot of decent chances. And you see the numbers. The Penguins have one of the best power plays in the NHL this season, and that's thanks to an impressive stretch since November 30th, where they have been the best power play in the NHL at 35.7%. Also, I want to talk about a guy named Kevin Hayes, because Kevin Hayes returned to the lineup last night. He showed a lot of energy in his return. P.O. Joseph was really great as well, a big addition to the team. But on the forward lines, Kevin Hayes really stood out to me. Kevin Hayes stood out for playing a 200-foot game, creating turnovers, creating offensive opportunities for the Pens. I just liked what he brought to the table last night. You could get that feeling that Kevin Hayes knows his time in Pittsburgh could be limited if he doesn't step it up. He had lost quite a bit of trust with Mike Sullivan to the point where he was scratched from the lineup every game for almost a month. He finally returns to the lineup last night. Anthony Beauvillier was a healthy scratch, and Hayes really played like he was playing his last game in Pittsburgh, and he's going to have to do that, playing every game like his last at 32 years old. Kevin Hayes is essentially playing for his job. If he doesn't play at a high level right now, or at least play a role for the Penguins, he's going to get traded or cut. Kyle Dubas and Mike Sullivan have a zero-tolerance policy right now. They're trying to find the forward group that best helps them win, and if Kevin Hayes isn't part of that group, they're not going to be shy about trading him away or getting him off the team. He has actually been a really good locker room guy for the Pens this season, a veteran that's been around the block for quite some time. He's been helping Owen Pickering quite a bit and a lot of the other young players on this Penguins team, helping them develop. You can't really put a price tag on that, but he is still expendable if he doesn't step up his production offensively and defensively when he's actually out there on the ice. He was traded for to be an all-star caliber player for the Pens, a player that they could rely on. He's being paid quite a bit of money to be on this team. And when the Penguins got him, they thought they were getting the former All-Star from the Philadelphia Flyers, from the St. Louis Blues. Like, he's been a really good player in the league for the last few years. And when the Penguins traded for him, they were expecting him to provide a huge boost, especially in the offensive side of things. And he just hasn't done that. He hasn't been playing in a lot of minutes this season, and he hasn't been contributing. They even tried him out on the power play for a while, and it just didn't work out. So Kevin Hayes really needs to step it up, and he did last night. I liked what I saw from him, and he's going to keep getting opportunities from Mike Sullivan if he continues to play that game, that 200-foot game. As we talk about momentum shifts, Gustav Forsling opened the scoring in the second period with a goal on Florida's first shot of the period. The Panthers dominated the second period after a slow start in the first. They were dominating the pace of play for the first little while in the first period, but I saw that momentum shift when the Penguins went on the double minor power play. Even though they didn't score, they got all the momentum, and for the latter half of that period, they were in full control. Now, it didn't result in a goal, but I just like what I saw from the team. As you take a look at the numbers, the Panthers won the game 3-2 in a shootout, and we'll get to that. But right now, I want to talk about the second period. Panthers dominated that second period. The Penguins got another power play opportunity after their double minor opportunity. So in the second period, they just struggled to find a rhythm with that power play that has been so effective. You see what the power play did in the game. They went 2 for 7. Noel Acciari ended up drawing another double minor penalty, and the Penguins got another power play. Bloody nose for Acciari. He paid the price, but it was worth it. Penguins capitalize immediately. You see there on the goal sheet, Sidney Crosby tallying one on the power play. Bryan Rust set that goal up, getting his 400th career point, and that is something worth mentioning for the Rusty Razor. Bryan Rust has been fantastic for Pittsburgh all season long, especially recently. The last few games, not so much, but before those last 3 games, Bryan Rust was on an absolute tear. That was his 400th career point, and you look at the numbers, a lot of Penguins have reached that 400-point plateau, but how many Penguins have actually reached that plateau, scoring their first 400 points with that organization? So Rust joins an exclusive list of players to do that. Obviously, Jake Guentzel right ahead of him on that list, playing his first few years of his career with Pittsburgh as well. Bryan Rust, one of the longer tenured Penguins. I think he's like 13th now in games played in Pittsburgh Penguins history. So Rust deserves a ton of credit for the way he's been playing lately. And now it is 400 career points. He has been so consistent. 400 points, 600 games for Rust in his Penguins career. He has been one of the best players on the team, a member of the core 5 that they have established with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Erik Karlsson. Bryan Rust, one of the most important players on this roster. That's why they gave him the contract extension when he was due up a couple seasons ago, and he has delivered, really helping this team win. He puts that A on his jersey when Kris Letang's out of the lineup. He is one of the leaders on this team, and to see him reach that milestone, 400 career points, is something special. He's a beloved guy in the city of Pittsburgh. He has a knack for scoring those key goals, and now that Jake Guentzel's gone, Bryan Rust is really the only guy you can rely on, him and Sidney Crosby, to get those key goals in those key moments, especially come playoff time. So Bryan Rust, congratulations, 400 career points for the Rusty Razor, and obviously we love Bryan Rust in Pittsburgh, so it's good to see him reach that milestone and be celebrated. When the Penguins travel back to Pittsburgh, I'm sure we'll have a ceremony for him before the game reaching that milestone, as we do for all all of our players when they reach big milestones like that. 400 points is nothing to be taken lightly, especially since he's one of 9 players ever to do that. 400 points with the Penguins, their first 400 points. Only 9 guys have done that. So Bryan Rust joins that list of players that I showed you just a little bit ago. And yeah, it deserves to be recognized, celebrated. We've got a loss last night, but that's one positive to take away from the game is Bryan Rust reaching another milestone with the black and gold. As we move on to the next topic, and that is resilience and drama. Towards the very end of the second period, Marcus Pettersson took a tripping penalty, and the Penguins were shorthanded for the first 2 minutes of the third period. You would think that would spark something in the Panthers, but it did. The Penguins were able to kill that off. Jari made a couple of sprawling saves, and then something interesting happened. A too many men penalty was called against the Pens, and then it was overturned because Mike Sullivan protested that the referee was in the way of Sidney Crosby trying to get to the bench, and they actually agreed with it. So they called back the penalty. They did a reversal, and Panthers bench was furious. I mean, it was great to watch Paul Maurice get fired up like he often does. The day before, they showed a clip during the game of him getting fired up during the Hurricanes game that the Panthers ultimately lost, but it's hard for the Panthers to lose back-to-back games. So we can't be too surprised that they were able to get the best of the Penguins in the game last night. But something on a more important note that happened in that third period, as we talk about resilience and drama, this was a dramatic thing that happened, and we weren't sure if he was going to be okay, but Philip Tomasino has been one of the most important players for the Penguins lately since they acquired him, and he got injured in that game last night. It was a scary moment. He crashed awkwardly into the boards. They stopped play for quite a while. He was sitting in the same position on his knees for a while, worried about his lower leg. I don't really want to speculate. I'm not sure if it was an ankle, but in hockey, we are very vague about injury designations. And when we say lower body injury, we have no idea what that actually means. All we know as of right now, and the latest update I could find, is that Tomasino did not return to the game and that he is going to be day-to-day for the time being until he is actually diagnosed. So we'll see if Tomasino requires missing time, but Anthony Beauvillier would step right back into the lineup if needed. The 23-year-old Tomasino from Mississauga, Ontario, acquired from the Nashville Predators on November 25th for a 4th-round pick, and he was worth a 4th-round pick and more. He's been spectacular for the Pens, even getting some power play minutes for Pittsburgh. And yeah, I love what Tomasino has brought to this team. He was a spark that they desperately needed at that time and continues to play at a high level. As for more drama, Rickard Rakell created some of that on his own, scoring a huge goal with 40 seconds left in the game, a tic-tac-toe passing play by the Pens, setting up Rickard Rakell. And man, they set up some really great one-timers in that game last night, I want to say. From the very beginning, Bryan Rust ripped one on goal for the Penguins' first shot of the game. Sidney Crosby got his goal on basically a one-time opportunity where he absolutely weighed into that puck. And then Rickard Rakell just getting set up perfectly in front of the net, banging it home with 40 seconds left to tie the game. Evgeni Malkin missed a wide-open net right before that on a brilliant setup by Cody Glass and Michael Bunting. That's worth noting because Evgeni Malkin really had an opportunity to win that game for the Pens and just couldn't do it. In the third period and overtime, he really held the team back, but Sidney Crosby continues to create chances, and Rickard Rakell has been the main beneficiary. Him and Bryan Rust have been great line mates to Sidney Crosby, and you look at the point production by Rakell, almost to 20 goals already on the season. So awesome contributions to this Pittsburgh Penguins team. Rickard Rakell on pace for a career year in the black and gold, and we love to see it. Rickard Rakell, a huge player for the Pens, and he continues to be one of their best players all season long. As we move on to overtime, falling short of victory. The overtime was crazy. High-paced, back and forth, as you expect the 3-on-3 overtime to be. A lot of chances for both teams. Neither team able to convert on those chances, and the Penguins fall short of victory, losing in a shootout, something that has been a struggle for Pittsburgh all season. It seems like when they go to a shootout, they're almost guaranteed to lose the game. And I don't know what it is, but every time we go to a shootout that I've watched the game, it seems like they've lost. And it says that in the standings, they are 1-3 in the shootout this season. It was just disappointing, really. That's all you can really say about it. I mean, the Penguins fight back, battle back, get a push of momentum, and they try to win the game against a really good hockey club, and they're just unable to pull off the miraculous comeback. They came back and tied it with Rickard Rakell, as we said, but you get to overtime, miss the opportunities, and then in the shootout, miss some more opportunities. As all of you know, when we get to the playoffs, shootouts aren't going to have any impact on anything whatsoever. So we just need to continue to cruise along. If we lose the shootouts, so be it. I'd like to see them figure it out and how to win this skills competition. But if they're unable to do so, it's not going to have a huge impact in the grand scheme of things, because tiebreakers come playoff time are regulation overtime wins, as you can see that column in the standings. Shootouts aren't going to get you those. And then when you get into the playoffs, like I said, you don't have to worry about the shootout. You're going to play continuous overtime, 5-on-5, until somebody scores. So not being able to win games in a literal skills competition that we see come All-Star game time in the skills, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, I'd like to see the Penguins put a little bit more effort into their opportunities, maybe a little bit more creativity, but it's the least of their concerns right now. If their worst trait as a team is a shootout, I'm fine with that. I mean, if that's your one weakness, and obviously this team has a lot of weaknesses, but I'm saying if that's one of them, that's the least concerning of all of them for Pittsburgh. So continue to lose games, close games, but we've also won a lot of close games. So continue to play a 500 hockey. Penguins are still 17-17 and now 17-17-6 instead of 17-17-5. So we're still hovering the 500 mark, which is okay. That was a really good hockey team that we're able to steal a point back from with that goal 40 seconds remaining in the third period. Raquel. Shout out Raquel helping this team get that point. And the Penguins, like I said, falling short of victory. On the power play, empty net, Raquel finding a way. So good job by the Pens to get 1 point out of the defending champs. That's fine. I'd like to see, what they can do against more good teams. And we're going to see that tomorrow against the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that just beat the Florida Panthers in their first part of the back-to-back. Penguins unable to solve Spencer Knight in that game last night. So Bobrovsky getting the loss the night before, and then Spencer Knight getting the W against the Pens in Sunrise. But just showing that resilience and that fight is something that I look for in this team, to know when they're playing their best hockey. And that's something that you look for, being able to brush off the bad moments and continue to battle. 40 seconds left for Raquel, big goal, getting the Penguins at 1 point. So escaping Sunrise with 1 point is okay with me. I'd like to get the W, but it is what it is. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Overall, I think there was a lot of good things to take from that game yesterday, and we talked about the trades that were made as well. So Kyle Dubas staying busy. Hopefully he will continue to do that and continue to help this team as we make a playoff push down the stretch, which would mean we'd see a lot more of these good teams like the Panthers and the Hurricanes. So stay tuned here on Penguins Digest. We'll keep you updated with the latest news, rumors, and updates on the Penguins. Hit that sub button down below if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. But thanks for watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow, and then they have an interesting stretch of games that I'm excited to talk to you guys about next week. So once again, thank you all for watching this episode of Penguins Digest, and we'll see you on the next one.